Up next, we will have a panel of experts from across the country who will share their experiences with delivery of OAA programs and the challenges they have in reaching vulnerable populations. I'd like to introduce our panel moderator, Orion Bell, President and CEO of Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging. Orion joined Benjamin Rose last year with more than 30 years of leadership experience in not-for-profit management. Before coming to Benjamin Rose, he served as president and CEO of SECOA, Aging and In-Home Solutions, the largest of Indiana's 16 area agencies on aging, so has lots of experience in challenges of delivering OAA programs. So, Dan, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Jean. Edwin, thank you so much for sharing the perspective and reminding us that there's always been the intent within the Older Americans Act to do the kinds of outreach and the kind of conversations that we're having today. And thank you for that. I'd like to take a moment and introduce our panelists this afternoon. And first of all, and then we will turn the program over to them. Gary Officer is the president and CEO for the Center for Workforce Inclusion, which is he's a seasoned social entrepreneur and chief executive, and he's known for his innovative and value-driven public-private partnerships to remove barriers to affordable housing, community development, and employment in low-income communities. He currently leads the largest and most experienced nonprofit dedicated exclusively to workplace inclusion and economic opportunities for low-income older job seekers. Thanks, Gary. Next, I want to introduce Larry Curley. Larry is a member of the Navajo Nation, who is a member of the National Tribal Chairmen's Association and founded the National Indian Council on Aging, NICOA, in 1976. He now serves as the executive director of NICOA and advocates for the health, social services, and economic well-being of American Indian and Alaska Native elders. Larry was instrumental in getting funds directed to the Native elders through the Title VI of the Older Americans Act in 1978 and spent decades working as a gerontological planner at the Pima Council on Aging in Tucson, Arizona, directing the Navajo Nation's Head Start program and serving as a nursing home administrator in a tribal long-term care facility. Thank you for being here today, Larry. Melinda Forste is the Chief Operating Officer for Serving Seniors. In this role, she oversees the agency's housing operations, food service management, facilities, and health and social services program. She has 15 years of nonprofit management experience and received her MBA from the San Diego State University. Welcome, Melinda. We hope to be joined by Linda Christensen, and she is having internet challenges today, so I do not believe she is currently on the call, but if she joins us, we will certainly include her in the discussion. Linda is the director of the Council of Aging for Lexington County Recreation and Aging Commission in South Carolina, where she delivers Older Americans Act services since 1974. And she has provided OAA services in California and has been the director of the LCRAC's Council on Aging Services for 22 years in Lexington, South Carolina. And Linda, I hope you can join us, and we will patch you in when you can. With that, I'd like to turn the program over to the panel, and I'm going to begin by asking each speaker to take a few minutes and share information about yourselves and your program, and a little bit about the community demographics of the area that you serve, and then we will follow those with a panel discussion with some questions that I will present to you. And we will begin with Melinda. She's in the upper left of my screen. And so Melinda, we'll start with you and make our way around the circle.
Great, thank you. And Jean, am I able to share my screen, or if you could pull out my slides, that would be wonderful. Okay, wonderful.
Is it sharing your screen? I can't tell.
I can see the slides, so this works perfectly. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm really excited to join everyone today on this critical issue. So Serving Seniors is a nonprofit that provides services to seniors throughout San Diego County. And in 2020, it marks an exciting year for Serving Seniors. It's actually our 50th anniversary as an organization. The next slide, please. So our mission is to help seniors in poverty live healthy and fulfilling lives. Next slide, please. So the seniors that we serve come from all different walks of life and very diverse backgrounds. The underlying thread that really ties all of our seniors together is poverty. 80% of our seniors live at or below the federal poverty level, with an average income monthly of about $940. So if you do the math, after paying $700 or $750 a month for rent, that leaves them just $6 or $7 a day to cover all of their other basic needs, such as food, healthcare, and transportation.
Melinda, we seem to be having some audio issues. I don't know. There's some feedback as you're speaking.
Is it better now? No? Okay, I can try calling in if you'd like.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. It's like you never know what you. Okay. I'm sure you've all experienced it over the last 6 months.
So I'm sorry, I had muted myself. While we were waiting for Melinda's audio issues to be addressed, wanted to move to Gary Officer. And Gary, if you would take a few minutes and tell us a little bit about your agency and the community that you serve.
Sure, and good afternoon. I want to first of all thank folks at the Benjamin Rhodes Institute for today's event, and also to Bob Blancato for providing me with this opportunity. I want to also thank Edwin Walker. I really enjoyed your presentation. I took copious notes, and one day hopefully my friend will meet in person. So I run the Center for Workforce Inclusion and also CWI Labs. We were once called Senior Service America. When I joined the organization 3 years ago and did my tour of all my friends in the funding community, the question they asked me consistently was, what are you? Are you an organization that just helps old people find jobs? That could be my grandmother. And every time I responded to those questions, it became apparent to me that the notion of aging, the perception of the value proposition that comes with the folks that we serve, has zero traction in the funding community outside of government. We live in a day when our foundation community, and Edwin mentioned this, that there's money out there. Our foundation community is sitting on $450 billion worth of assets. Less than 2% of their funding goes towards aging programs. Less than 1% goes to workforce development. I'm in both spaces. And I'm telling my staff, we are going to be a lot more aggressive in how we present the case for engagement across government agencies, but also deep into the philanthropy community. Because if they can fund charter schools and affordable housing and all the other things, when we have a generation of Americans who built this country, who are struggling now in their later years to simply make ends meet, and they are really hurting, and they are relying on networks like ours, and yet in the shortfall in funding, we have nowhere else to go. That's a problem. So what I've done at this Senior Service America, which is anchored by a program called CSEP, which some of you are familiar with, the Senior Community Service Employment Program, is to use a federal program and to build a national movement around it. When I came on board here 3 years ago, CSEP as a brand was larger than our organization. I had folks walking around the building with CSEP bags. So for the general public on the metro in Washington, D.C., all they saw was CSEP. They had no idea who we were. So based on all my experiences in the affordable housing world, which is extensive, in the CDFI world, which is extensive, in the philanthropy world, which was equally extensive, I basically reframed the entire organization. And out of that has come a few things. One, we have built a national coalition among the CSEP national groups that focuses on workforce development within and external to CSEP. So we can build public awareness around the value proposition that comes with having this unique population of skilled and motivated older workers who are only seeking opportunity to remain engaged in the workforce. It's our responsibility to make the case for them. That's one. Two, we changed our name from Senior Service America to the Center for Workforce Inclusion. Three, we built a think tank called CWILabs.org, where I invite economists, thought leaders, international experts to join me in a conversation about aging and workforce. And before this meeting, I interviewed a senior policy advisor to Boris Johnson, who wrote a book called Extra Time, to gain her perspective on what she has learned from her travels, from her research about aging, and how those lessons can be applied to our experiences. And by creating this platform for analysis and commentary and all kinds of other informational items, I'm trying to basically feed the public realm with cutting-edge information that will drive awareness to our cause. And all of us, I think collectively, have to rethink how we think about our business. Because to take Edwin's point, doing business as we have done for the last 16 years will not get us through a period of scarcity and funding. So how do we do that? Challenge ourselves, talk to young people, build an active social media platform, write op-eds and blogs, join national networks within and external to your group. Because in the other networks I have had been privy to, that's how they stayed on top of the game. You got to think 2 or 3 steps ahead and make yourself valuable. And all those things I just mentioned has become a part of what the Center for Workforce Inclusion and CWI Labs is trying to accomplish. So thank you. Back to the moderator.
I have done it again. So now I've learned to unmute. All right. So thank you, Gary, for that and that insight on the employment issues with older adults. And next, would like to turn to Larry Curley. And Larry, if you would take a few minutes and tell us a little bit about the organization and a little bit about the demographics of the populations that are served through your organization.
Thank you, Orion. Again, my name is Larry Curley. I'm the executive director of the National Indian Council on Aging, and have been there now about almost 2 years now. Back in 1976, we started the organization. I was one of the co-founders of the National Indian Council on Aging at the ripe old age of 24, and worked on the Older Americans Act and authored the original Title VI legislation, which was then called Title X at the time, and proceeded from there to end up in Washington, D.C., 2 doors down the hall from Commissioner Arthur Fleming back in those days, and that was the quote unquote the Indian desk within the Administration on Aging back then. I think that one of the things that we have looked at over the years has been that we are an advocacy organization. We try very hard to make sure that area agencies on aging, the Aging Network, and organizations like Gary's office understand the needs of older Indians across the country. And as Edwin mentioned, that one of the things that we have always been concerned about is the life expectancy of older Indian people compared to the rest of the population. They do have shorter lifespans, life expectancy. In fact, back in the early 1980s, I was a part of a national study that was done utilizing an instrument called the ORS instrument that measured older Indian people on 5 scales, 5 different levels of scale, scoring. And we found that after we did the research and the study, that Indians at the age of 45 exhibit the same characteristics as non-Indians do at the age of 65, which gave us the information and the data to change the legislation in the Older Americans Act to change Title VI to say older Indians are whatever the tribes decide older means in their population and their community. So in a lot of ways, this was a response, at least understanding, recognizing the cultural differences and even the life expectancy differences in the Indian communities. And to this day, I don't think there's a tribe out there that has an age lower than I think 50. I think is probably the lowest in terms of eligibility for Title VI programs. In terms of demographics, one of the things that I realized back from 1980 to now is that in the 1980 census, 30% of the Indian population lived off reservations. 70% still lived on reservations. And today, in 2010, the last census, 70% of the Indian population are now off reservation and in urban communities. 30% are still on reservations. And so with that demographic shift is now an impetus on the part of the National Indian Council on Aging to begin to let and inform the Aging Network that there is a sizable population of older Indians probably moving into urban areas, and that they need to be cognizant of that population in their communities. And we just recently received a grant award from the Administration on Aging, which is precisely what we are going to be doing and going out and working with the Aging Network, because even a year ago, compared to 40 years ago when I was in the Aging Networks working as an area agency on aging planner, one of the questions I used to receive was, what's it like to be an Indian? And my answer was, I have no idea. I haven't been anything else other than an Indian. And the other thing that they asked us, they asked us if we still lived in teepees. That was 40 years ago. My answer was, no, we don't live in teepees. But today, I still, a year ago, I was at an ASA conference in New Orleans. And I was asked the same question. Are you still living, we don't know how to work with Indian people. We don't know how to work with Indian tribes. I think basic to that population, I think as different from the other populations, is that Indian tribes, Indian communities have a direct government to government relationship in this country. And that's based on the fact that they are mentioned in Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution as a unique population. We have a direct government to government relationship. As we try to work through and begin to educate and sensitize the Aging Network, my concern is that we just recently, I just read that OMB just released a document saying this sensitivity type training shall no longer be done, and that there are penalties attached to that. Race, I think, was even mentioned in the debates last night, that any subcontractor of the federal government that goes out and does this could be penalized, which puts what we're trying to do in jeopardy. How can we have an aging network that's responsive to the needs of older Indian populations, much less the other populations, when there is this OMB memo that just came out? That concerns me greatly. But in terms of the elderly population today in Indian country, they're far better educated than the ones I started off with back in the 80s and 70s. They're more educated. But along with this now is that we're finding that there is an increasing number of older Indians who are Vietnam veterans, Vietnam era veterans. And that comes along with the PTSD type issues. And when you talk about urban areas, we just recently received our CSEP grant, and we were notified that we have been expanded out to other areas. There are some areas, for example, in North Dakota, where the elders that are out there are not going to be eligible for the CSEP program, although because of the large oil boom up in North Dakota. We have been assigned North Dakota to deal with. And a lot of those elders are not going to be eligible for CSEP programs because their per capita income that's coming in is being considered in the eligibility process. But overall, I think that one of the things I still see a need for is the need to continue to educate, to inform, and to advocate on behalf of our older Indian population. And as we look at this era of COVID, we're learning how the technology works and trying to figure out how it works and to reach out to our populations. There are some areas of Indian country that do not have access to broadband. And so they don't have that opportunity to do Zoom meetings or GoToMeeting type meetings. But one of the things that the Administration on Aging has done through their Indian program has been a Friday. Every Friday, there is a telephone conversation that goes on where we learn about what's going on out in Indian country. And that has been one of the most fantastic things that has happened under the leadership of a young lady there by the name of Cynthia LeCount, who's running that program. And so it's been great working with her. I think that one of the things, just as information item, is that I just recently learned that there were 1,740 people who have died in Indian country from COVID-19. And of that 1,740, the median age of those people who have passed away was 40. So half above, half above. So I think that we still have work to do, but I applaud a lot of the efforts that both you, Edwin, have worked on to make things better for our population. And without the insights and the wisdom of that old guy, Bob, thank you for all the work you've done on behalf of our Indian elderly population as well. So, my presentation.
All right, thank you, Larry. Now, Melinda's been able to rejoin us. So, Jean, if you can maybe bring the slides back up. And Melinda, we'll turn it back to you.
So as I mentioned, we serve a very diverse group of seniors from all different backgrounds. But the underlying thread that impacts all of our seniors is the poverty level. 80% of the seniors we serve are at or below the federal poverty level. And after paying for rent, many of them just have $6 or $7 a day to live off of. Next slide, Jean. And you can go to the next slide as well. So nutrition is the #1 reason people seek our services. We're projected to serve over 1 million meals this year alone. Before the pandemic, we were providing congregate meals at senior community centers, housing sites, and at our flagship Gary Mary West Senior Wellness Center. Since the pandemic, we have shifted dramatically and are now providing almost all of our meals delivered to our seniors' homes. And we've also started a shelf-stable meals program where we provide a pantry box full of monthly non-perishable meals. We also continue to provide to-go meals at 2 of our sites each day also. Next slide, Jean. In addition to nutrition, we really think it's important to look at the whole person that we're serving. So we have a robust health and social services team, and some of the services that team provides may be things such as entitlements assistance, help navigating the system, also connecting them to primary care physicians, and also activities and socialization. Next slide, Jean. But the number 1 issue that faces seniors in San Diego by far is affordable housing. You can see from this graph, there is a huge shortage of affordable housing throughout the county, nearly 80,000 units. And the average wait time for a voucher is 10 or 12 or even more years. So this leaves so many of the older adults in our communities, living with their friends, living with their family. Often they're living in their cars. Next slide, Jean. Okay. In addition to the affordable housing shortage, 1/3 of older adults in San Diego are homeless. Or 1/3 of the homeless in San Diego are older adults. I once heard a colleague once say that 60 is the new 80. And for a senior living on the streets, that is so true. They're much more likely to have chronic medical conditions. And from 2004 and what it's projected to be all the way up to 2030. So it's continuing to grow, and it continues to grow at a faster and faster rate as well. Next slide, Jean. Housing communities. We currently own and operate 3 affordable housing communities in San Diego. And at these sites, our seniors have access to a social worker and also a nurse. We also have a transitional housing program where seniors have their rent covered by a Section 8 voucher while they're in that program, typically between 3 to 6 months. And while they're in that program, they're working really closely with our case management team to help come up with a budgeting plan, get them connected to additional resources and entitlements, and then ultimately move them into permanent affordable housing as well. Next slide, please. Lastly, both our staff members and the older adults we serve are really involved in advocacy. One of the ways that we really engage our seniors is through our civic engagement program. And in this program, the older adults are really the ears and eyes of their community. They are the ones who identify what issues that they want to focus on. This can be at a local level, a state level, and a national level. And some of the activities that we do involve having town halls with local elected officials and candidates. We have letter writing campaigns. We hold Advocacy 101 workshops. And right now we're really focused on our Get Out the Vote efforts. So with that, I will turn that back over. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Melinda. And then we also have been joined by Linda Christensen. And so Linda, if you could take a few minutes and tell us about your organization and the community you serve.
Sure, and there you go. Okay, so I have been doing Older Americans Act services probably about as long as Edwin. So Edwin, thank you, and it's delightful to have all of you here and to get a chance to learn about what everybody's doing. And I especially appreciated Larry's presentation because we are actually starting to see an increase in American Indians in our programs. So your information is very helpful, and I really intend to pursue learning more about what you had to say, because I think it could be a great asset to us in helping serve our program. So anyways, I kind of wanted to share with you about Miss Laura's eggs. And the foundation of how we provide our services are based in what Miss Laura has to say about her eggs. So our value is to appreciate and respect and to care about our clients. Next slide, please. Okay, Lexington County, South Carolina we're located right in the middle of the state. And we are a mix of semi-suburban and rural to very rural. We have had huge growth since 2010. Most of the growth is in people moving to South Carolina from other parts of the country. And a lot of it is people retiring here. And the people who are retiring here are culturally very different from the people who have lived here all their lives. So it creates a different kind of diversity challenge for us than maybe some other places. We are in this county, we are 75% white, 16% African American, 6% Hispanic, 3% American Indian, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, and I don't know that I've seen any Native Hawaiians in our programs, but we've definitely had Pacific Islanders and Hispanic. 16% are over 65, and 11 of the 14 geographic areas in Lexington County have a poverty level that is 51% or higher than the low to medium income that is required for getting a CDBG grant. So we have a lot of poverty here. We have some areas that are pretty wealthy, but the people we serve are predominantly very low income. Next slide, please. Okay, we are a little different than many other entities. We are actually a special purpose district, and we were created by an act of the legislature. That means that we actually get millage on the property tax. So it gives us a lot of flexibility for doing some innovative programming and expanding services. However, we are required to do services for all ages, not my department, but the agency as a whole. And so that also provides us with the opportunity to do a lot of intergenerational programming, which is a pretty special thing to do. We are governed pretty politically because our commissioners are nominated by the legislative delegation and appointed by the governor. And we've got some great people on our commission. So our funding is about 30% Older Americans Act or state money, and then 70% local dollars fundraising a variety of in-kind things, but only about 30% is federal or state. And about 87% of our clients meet the definition of low income. So next slide, please. Okay, our demographics for both staff and clients, it was really pretty interesting to do this because I hadn't really looked at it. You just sort of do a lot of things as you go, even though we have always focused on targeting. But our hiring policy has been to try and find people from the local communities who know the local communities, who can help us tie into the local communities, because there's not a lot of resources in South Carolina. We are not a wealthy state. And so we do a lot of things that are strictly with informal resources. And you need to have people on your staff who know people in their local community, who know which plumber might be willing to come and fix some senior's toilet or deal with a leak, or a roofer who would come and add some shingles after a storm. So we do a lot of that kind of thing. And what that means is that we're really pretty balanced. 21.3% of our clients are African American, and 22.5% of our staff are African American. So we're balanced. We do a lot of promoting from within, helping people learn and develop as individuals. And so right now, among our African American staff, we have 2 people who are program coordinators, which is sort of the top level of management. We have 2 assistant directors, and we have 3 additional people who are training to promote to coordinator or director positions. And then we have some retirees who are looking to make extra money. And of course, our challenge is we have at least 25% of our clients who live in rural or very rural areas. So that makes it very different from when I did services in California or Massachusetts. Anyways, next slide, please. Okay, we have 7 senior centers, and we have, before COVID, we were offering choice meals and a whole range of activities at every senior center, and activities balanced to meet the needs of the community. Fitness classes, trips and tours, shopping, Meals on Wheels or home delivered meals, medical escort transportation, housekeeping, telephone reassurance. We also sponsor senior games, a number of different community projects to benefit our seniors. So life changed drastically in March. Next slide, please. With COVID-19, we had to shut down all of our senior centers. Our county is one of the counties in South Carolina that has a huge, high number of people with COVID. So we shut down everything. We're still closed. We are doing Meals on Wheels. Our Meals on Wheels program has grown 34% since COVID. So we're on target to do 159,072 meals. If we get our senior centers back open, we will be adding approximately, and if people decide they're willing to come, which is another separate issue, we will be adding another approximately 1,500 meals a week to the home delivered meals. We also do a pickup meals program for those people who are able to drive in and pick up meals. We were part of a Blue Cross Blue Shield 6-week drive-through meals program, which served 2,000 seniors with 5 meals a week for each of them, so another 60,000 meals. We make daily wellness calls. We're making 1,300 to 1,400 calls a week. We have just restarted our housekeeping and shopping program, and we are trying to help people access sanitation supplies, extra groceries, pet food. We're doing online programming for those people that actually have internet that works. Activity booklets, information, a variety of different things to help try and keep people somewhat engaged. Next slide, please. So I started thinking about, and I talked to my colleagues in South Carolina, I talked to my staff, I talked to some of the clients to see sort of where we all felt our successes were and our challenges are. For us, client outreach and involvement is really pretty good. As a state, we are serving significantly a higher percentage of minorities than live in South Carolina. So we feel really good about that. We have a lot of senior center volunteers who are minority. We have great involvement from local churches and businesses, small businesses, political leaders, and a lot of informal resources that are a mixture of people from all kinds of ethnic backgrounds. Our challenges, though, particularly for Meals on Wheels, is finding volunteers and people who can be part of advisory groups who are available in the daytime in South Carolina for our current seniors. And most of our folks are 75 and older. But for our current seniors, many of them are still working. They are having to have part-time jobs to supplement what they have from Social Security. And that's because a lot of them had their own farms, worked in agriculture, worked as domestics, worked in factories. Lexington had a mill for a long time, so we still have some retired mill workers. We have a different background than in a lot of other parts of the country. Lack of internet in rural areas is a really, really big deal. At my house, and I live in a very rural area, at my house, we only got DSL internet several years back, and I was on a waiting list for it for about 10 years. There are a number of places in the county that have no internet availability at all. It doesn't exist. We also have a lot of people that simply do not have, even if internet is available, they have no clue how to use it. So we feel like our a really huge challenge is to find a way to create some kind of method for reducing social isolation, especially during COVID, for those people who cannot participate in any of the virtual programs that we're doing. And that is, I don't have a good answer for that. So I'm looking for answers to that if anybody has some ideas. Next page, please. So here's Miss Laura's egg wisdom. And Miss Laura passed away recently, but she was a long-time home delivered meal client. She was part of our home repair program. She was part of a lot of different things. And she's a very, very talented lady. She raised chickens and vegetables and had fruit trees and could cook anything in the world. Just a full wealth of all kinds of information that is sadly getting lost. But her attitude is, and these are her eggs from her chickens. She can't tell you which chicken lays which egg, which color. But she likes that her eggs are all different and pretty colors on the outside, but inside they're all the same, just like you and me. So, thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.